everybody. Welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast. And we're really excited because we have Stacey Agdern back on the podcast. Author Stacey, thank you so much for coming to talk with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I always love when I come on to chat about whether it's about movies or books or all of it. So
yeah, it's so much fun. I always look forward to it. And we had you on this last holiday season for Round and Round, and that was such a fun movie and such a fun discussion.
Yeah. It's always like whether, the movies have been interesting, and as they change over the years, it's nice to kind of have this record of conversation.
It is.
Of the path that they've taken to get there. So,
yeah. But yeah, you're 24. It's been exciting. It's been,
I think it has been. It's been interesting.
Yeah, I can relate. It's been a whirlwind for me as well. I'm still getting over this cold and I got allergies, and that just kind of like inflamed everything. And just got like a sinobronchitis, kind of I'm like 99, but there's just like this little thing hanging on for dear life. Like
oh no, I hate that. I hate that. Oh my gosh.
Yes. But yeah, so you've had a number of different projects kind of going around. But very exciting, your new book, The Dating Contract, come out. And so we're going to dive into all of that. And yay! Congratulations.
Thank you so much. It's exciting. It's I'm enjoying the way that the series has been going, and I'm excited. So
yeah. So explain the series and kind of where this one fits into what the other books.
So the very first book in the series, The B'nai Mitzvah Mistake, is the story of two people who have a bit of a history and are forced to share the date of their adult B'nai Mitzvah. The Jewish coming of age ceremony done as adults.
Right.
5 years later, as this particular couple falls in love, there is a proposal that happens. And at some point soon, I will release the short story called The Proposal Problem, where the hero of that book proposes to the heroine, and we have a potential wedding, which is where the dating contract comes in. The main female character in the dating contract is Leah, who is the younger sister of Judith, who is the heroine of The B'nai Mitzvah Mistake. She is also in the position as younger sister of maid of honor for this wedding. And the book opens at a large convention center in New York, which is for this particular occasion, dressed up for the wedding expo. It's a multiple day wedding expo that happens like in various convention centers throughout the country. And this time it's happening in this very large convention center. Judith and Leah are waiting outside to go in. And when they do, they are in search of the very first thing of a ketubah, a dating contract. A ketubah, which is a wedding contract. It's the most important thing you need for a Jewish wedding, and therefore, and they're beautiful. It's works of art done by a Jewish calligrapher, a sofer, which is the best way. And they are meandering their way through, and they see a line for someone who is described as the hot sofer. Of course, the last thing Leah would like to realize is that the hot sofer is actually her high school boyfriend. And so begins the wild web of ties and tangles that serves as the story of the dating contract.
Now, when you're writing, do you kind of look out for interesting characters that you might want to spin off? Does some just hit you as like, oh, I want to learn more about this character? How does that happen?
So I absolutely do. When I was writing a book last year, when I was writing a book a couple of years ago, because time means nothing these days. the main male character, his best friend, I thought he was fantastic. I did not expect him to walk on the page and steal his scenes like the way he did. It was kind of amazing how that worked. And so I vowed that because of the kind of character that he was, it was going to be fascinating to write his book. And I will have news on that really soon.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That's interesting. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah. And what's your process like for writing a book in general? Kind of, I mean, I'm sure we talked about that in the past, but it's been a while. Like, do you like map it all out? Are you a planner?
So someone actually said your playlist is your outline, and I absolutely agree with that. At the very beginning of the process of writing a book, I think about the kind of emotions that I want to bring into it
Uh-huh.
and create a playlist whose songs reflect that. And then I start to listen to the playlist and I start to think of the things that I want to see from my characters. And I'll have scenes that'll come to me and I'll start writing them. And they may not be in order. If there is a deadline involved, I'm basically the kind of person who I will write forwards, I will write backwards, I will write like in between scenes, I will go back once I've gone ahead. If I need to see how something might possibly work, I will go back and then delete, fix whatever I've written in advance. But generally speaking, I know the beginning, the middle, and the end is how it's supposed to work. And then I fill in the pieces. And like
Yeah.
it's chaos basically, but it's as organized chaos as I can get it.
Yeah.
It's funny because I'm one of those people who, as part of the writing process, as part of the publishing process, I should say, one of the things you sometimes have to do in advance, and most of the time, is write a synopsis. I'm one of those people who cannot have in mind that synopsis when I'm writing.
Oh, interesting.
I have to pretend it doesn't exist. The
Hmm.
funny part of that is that I end up writing the book that I've synopsized, even though I'm not actually like
Uh-huh.
actively thinking about what I wrote in
Yeah.
the synopsis. But like to go back to how do I know like what character is next? I think in a lot of ways, like one of my favorite authors is Nalini Singh. And one of the things I love about her series is that, like, and I'm specifically talking about the Side Change in the series, is that she picks characters and couples that advance the larger plot as well as work together in the story. So, like, when I'm when I'm working on a series, um, the goal is to kind of try to like forward the larger plot line in ways that make sense, if that makes sense at all. So like I'll pick characters that will do that. It won't always work that way. Like you sometimes find out that when you're in the course of the story and you're trying to make a story do too much, you realize no, actually this is not the first book in the series. Actually, there should be another book inside, and that's kind of what happened with this series. Um, Wild fun fact is that The Dating Contract is actually the first book that I thought of when I thought of writing a series about a Jewish wedding. But in the process of creating it, I was trying to do too much. There were like, sort of like, there was a revolutionary cartoonist. I was trying to add so much to this book, like mistaken identity and all
Yeah.
kind of stuff. And I was like, no, 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 no. Like you're trying to make it too much. And that's when I realized, as I said, that this was not the first book of the series. Hence, I had to introduce it with someone else. Hence, I had to introduce the series about a Jewish wedding by writing the story of the couple who gets married. So, like, the 4 books in the series shows the progress towards the wedding.
Hmm.
Ho, ho, ho. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast, especially at Christmas?
Do you enjoy the holiday previews, recaps, interviews, and bonus episodes?
If the answer is yes, please consider supporting the Hallmarkies Patreon. We need your help to do what we do both during the Christmas season and all year round.
But not only do you help a podcast led by strong, independent women by becoming a Patreon, you get to become a part of the Hallmarkies family.
Starting at only $2 a month as a patron, you will have access to our Facebook Patreon group where we talk about the movies, shows, and more all year.
We also have many monthly patron watch-alongs with guests like Lacey Chabert, Natalie Hall, Paul Campbell, Mary Lou Henner, and more, giving their behind-the-scenes details of their films.
As a patron, you also have the chance to provide input into the podcast and even join us at different tiers.
So this Christmas season, spread some cheer to the Hallmarkies Patreon and become a member today. You won't regret it.
Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies to learn more.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
Itself.
Yeah.
That's the plan.
Well, that's interesting because I was going to ask, like, do you edit as you go, or do you wait and finish it and then edit it?
I very much edit as I go. Like, without a question. I've tried not to edit and I can't. Because my vision of the book changes as I'm writing things. Like, as I said, I am the chaotic writer. So like I will have like scenes that are like right next to each other, and then one like 5 years, like not like,
Yeah.
300 pages later. And by the time I get to the 300 pages later scene, the book will have changed. So I have to change that, or I have to like go back and fix something, or, oh, wait a second, what? I'll discover things as I'm writing, and it affects both going back and going forward. So.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, how would you say this book, The Dating Contract, is different than your other books?
So there's a lot of conversation about people who have no choice but to get there. Like, I think I've written stories that about people who find themselves forced kind of together in a lot of ways, but I think this is the first one where I actively have the conversation about strings and ties and fate. But also, one of the things, this is actually also my first fake dating story. This is the first time I've tackled that trope like actively and together. But one of the things that I have discovered as a reader that I love are characters who are self-aware. And what I mean by that is the following: that these characters are very well know exactly what's going on, in the sense that they know they are confronting a trope. They are in the perfect situation for a romantic trope to appear. And whether they like the idea or they are trying to thwart it, they know what's going on. And Leah is very much a lover of, Korean dramas, but she also loves the in-book equivalent of Hallmark movies and romance novels. So like, she knows what a fake dating trope is. Otherwise, she would not have come up with this idea. She comes up with this idea because of her love of this, these different forms of media that all sort of focus very strongly on certain strong tropes. And so she knows, she has her opinions about why they work in the various form of media that she's read, and why she can thwart them in her reality. And so she is convinced that she is not going to end up, as she calls it, a fake dating fail. But of course, this is a romance novel. We know better.
Right.
So,
yeah. I would think that would be a fun trope to write. It's so silly.
it was a grand, I had so much fun, like, not only having her exercise her fandom at the beginning of the book, thinking about the various like romance novels and dramas that she was going to reference, in terms of like pulling this idea together, but also like sort of her reactions as things completely like fall around down her feet, because you can't fight fate no matter how hard you try in a romance novel.
Yeah. I think that people like the fake dating trope because it allows you to just sort of like gleeful abandon, because it's so silly that from the very outset, you're just like, okay, I'm going with it, you know?
Yep.
And you're not trying to be realistic at all.
Yeah. Like, and it's interesting because like, there are so many different ways to confront the trope, so many different ways to have it apply to a story. And, one of the fundamental things that sort of drives a lot of them is the idea of an interfering family.
Yeah.
And as I've already established, the Nackmans are an interfering family, I might as well use, that trope that's deployed when interfering families get themselves involved.
Yeah. Well, so there's some terms that people might not be familiar with outside of Judaism. And so I thought that might be interesting to sort of talk about it a little bit.
Sure.
Like you already mentioned the Sofer.
Yeah.
Why don't you explain a little bit about what that is?
So in Judaism, there are a bunch of different sacred scrolls. There are Torahs, which is the Bible, the 5 books of Moses. There are ketubas, which are, as I said, the art drawn beauty of a wedding contract. There are also mezuzahs, which are the rectangular boxes outside of on sort of the doorposts of Jewish homes, which contain a scroll, like a beautifully written scroll of prayer. And there are also tefillin, which are basically like a tangible method of praying in essence. And each of the scrolls that are contained within the tefillin, the mezuzah scroll, the Torah scroll, and the Megillah scroll, and the ketubah are all written by someone who gets specialized training. And there are tons of really cool videos available that tell how they work and like how they train and how they learn. But yeah, they get specialized training using specialized materials, special pens, special ink. There's a way of formally writing. It's a really interesting profession and a really interesting story behind it. So I kind of was like, when I was trying to figure out, as I said, the dating contract was the first book that I thought of initially in what now is the Last Girl Standing series. And I wanted to think about what a Jewish writer could bring to a book about a Jewish wedding. Like what is something very specific about a Jewish wedding that no other culture has? Excuse me. And the first thing I thought of was the ketubah, which meant in my head, one of the very first things that stayed the same from the original idea to this one was that I thought it would be hilarious to have someone fake dating a sofer. And as a result, the sofer would write a dating contract. So
that'd be a take on the ketubah, but obviously for dating.
Exactly.
Yeah. And of course, we all became familiar with the ketubah with the marriage contract on Hallmark Channel.
Yes, I was really, really excited about that for this particular reason. I love, I was thinking about Hanukkah on Rye and how 6 months later, I had a book that also had a very deep plot line.
They're in your head. They're in your head, Stacey.
I love that, like, it had a very deep plot line about how the Lower East Side was tied to the history of Jews in New York and the history of Jewish culture. And the same thing, happened when I saw the wedding contract. I was like, yes, we see ketubah frames, in the book, and we hear, in the movie and in the book, and we hear the story of what ketubahs are, and it's kind of awesome. So I was all excited.
Yeah. Well, what about another word that I think people might not be familiar with, espeshert? Sorry if I said that wrong. But I know this word because on The Nanny, there's a very important episode. I mean, she used a lot of Yiddish words in The Nanny, but one of the very important episodes is there's a 2-episode arc where Fran almost runs off with Maxwell's brother. Right. And so she just misses the boat. She just misses running off with him and goes back, and they never tell Maxwell that this almost happened until Nigel, the brother, arrives before their wedding. They're engaged, right? And then the secret gets out that, oh, we were almost married. And so Maxwell gets really upset. And they even, she gives back the ring for a second. Like, it's a great episode. I love the whole arc. And at the end, she says that we're Bashert, that we're made for each other, because that's what we are. We're Bashert, and we're naked without each other, just like my finger. And she's like, and it's a great moment in the show, and it's a great episode. Anyway, so that's how I know that word. But our listeners might not be aware of that word. What is that word?
So one of my favorite things that I was kind of thinking about and working with in the dating contract was the idea that, like, in some cultures there's the red string of fate, in some cultures there's the bashert, but the idea that, like, there are soulmates who can escape fate, fated mates in parallel, in other places, but that, like, you are my soulmate, you are my forever, you are my person, that we are tied together by a blue strand, we are tied together. And that's kind of the concept of bashert, that's the same as, like, all of these other cultures have. And so it was, as I said, it was just a lot of fun, like, tying bashert to these other cultures is kind of this, like, thing that, these similar tie, each, we all have these, like, similar conversations all the time about fated mates, and we just use different terms for them. So.
Yeah. And it means it's interesting. So do they believe that you have, like, a person you're like supposed to marry?
Apparently. There's some kind of soulmate.
Does everyone have a bashert, or just a few?
That's kind of the
idea,
the sort of gist of it.
Like, sometimes they're taking their time.
Yeah,
they hurry it up.
Like, okay.
Yeah, but that must have been fun to interweave that in with this fake dating and everything kind of thing into the story.
Because, like, it's like one of the things that Leah sees is that in all of the movies and television shows and books that she's read that deal with the concept of fake dating, all of the people that she sees involved in this process don't know each other. So she thinks, and so she thinks that because these people don't know each other, and fake dating is always for a very specific, limited amount of time, these people show their best selves to the other person. And so therefore, because they don't have any background about the other person, therefore, like, their fake dating fails because they fall in love with the best of each other. But Leah thinks that because the fake dating, because she and Samuel, who is the high school ex, the hot sofair, know that they are bad for each other, they will work as fake dating and will not develop feelings because they know they are not good for each other.
We'd like to take a second to thank our sponsor of this episode of the podcast. It's Love in Tandem by Becca Kinzer. This hilarious fake relationship road trip rom-com is one you won't want to miss this spring. Charlotte is perfectly content leading her quiet life as a music teacher in her hometown. But then she gets roped into a 500-mile tandem bicycle challenge to fundraise for her music program. And her partner is her ex-fiancé's adventure-loving brother, Zach. And the whole town just happens to think they're dating. What could go wrong? Plenty, it turns out. As Charlotte and Zach navigate the literal and figurative bumps in the road, Together, they'll realize tandem biking might just be the start of their biggest adventure yet. Love in Tandem is the perfect book for readers who enjoy witty banter and will they, won't they chemistry. You can find this laugh-out-loud new romance from Becca Kinzer wherever you buy your books, and learn more about Becca at beccakinzer.com. That's beccakinzer.com, or use the affiliate link below.
You have the concept of the shirt, that red string of fate, the invisible string that ties people together, And this fake dating acts as yet another string that ties them together, that deals with it. Because again, the wrinkle that I've added is that not only is she self-aware, this is a second chance romance. So
oh yeah. Yeah.
So you've got this multiple layered sort of set of tropes that are working together and also opposite each other. So they have no choice. What they don't realize is that they've actually tied themselves together tighter with this contract, this desire to fake date. And that is where the fun begins.
Yeah. Do you have of the main tropes, enemies to lovers, friends to lovers, second chance romance? Do you have a favorite or one that's hardest to write in, do you think?
So my favorite, I kind of have a little problem because I love writing second chances, and I'm expertly trying to not do it again, but inevitably it will happen somehow. In somewhere. But I love playing with different tropes. As I said, fake dating was something that I hadn't played with before, so I'm doing it. I love exploring them. I try to write enemies to lovers, but then it's no, it's actually just cross purposes. Working against each other, and oops, the problem is that they actually like each other.
You're right. Well, it's really hard to write enemies to lovers because you have to keep the characters likable enough.
Yeah, what you have to do is you have to make it plausible.
Yeah.
They are both enemies, but also why would she like this person?
Right.
It's not necessarily likability for the character. What does she see in him? Kind of thing. Or what does he see in her? Or what do they see in each other? While also being oh my gosh, I hate this person. You have to sort of manage that tightrope of things. So
yeah. Well, how did you develop Leah and Samuel as characters? What was that process like?
So again, when you're dealing with a second, so I think it kind of started from second chance leads for him. I started with her already from the B'nai Mitzvah Mistake. She was a secondary character, so diving into her as a main was kind of fun. I've her journey as a sports agent, her journey as a younger sister to someone who wants to protect her all the time is also kind of a thing. So those two things tied together, but also the idea of her wanting to kind of pave her own way. And also the 5 years that separate B'nai Mitzvah Mistake and this book, her older sister goes through a fundamental change, not only in personality and perspective, but also just kind of life choices. And dealing with that process between these two sisters who have trouble communicating to begin with, what's that effect on her? What's that going to do to her? Is she going to confide in her sister? Absolutely not. She's going to confide in her cousins, and the sort of the reaction to the complete 180 that Judith has made about dating is a huge thing. So how do you react? How 5 years ago the sister was against dating, and all of a sudden now she's okay, everybody should date, and why are not you, kind of thing. How do you deal with that from and that's kind of also where it started as well, because the sort of the beginnings for the fake dating question, right? We talked about why certain tropes work, why certain tropes happen. Fake dating, again, one of the big reasons is interfering families. And the article and like the catalyst for that is Judith's change in personality and perspective. So like Leah, like it sort of alters Leah's personality to the point where she is taking ideas from her favorite books and movies on how to deal with this. Right? There's no instruction manual, just like books and movies and things that she loves. And so like that's the journey that she's on, and trying to be herself and get what she wants in terms of her professional accolades, like juggling everything. Like
Yeah.
she's a sport agent. Where does she want to go with her life and her career? Like, how does that go? What does that want to go? Like, and all of the things that happen there drove from that, like interfere, like, does that make sense? Like, it's all like, and then for Samuel was a blank slate. Samuel was always the so-fair, but I was like, how does that start? Like, and when we were talking about likability of characters, that was kind of one of the things that drove me into where he was and who he was in high school. Like, what happened between them? What drove him when he sees her and when he wants her forgiveness for what happened? Like, how does that work? How could someone, like, what kind of person can we like who did that? Does that make any sense? Like, who did something to like change her opinion? And then professionally, I had to think about like, okay, he's young. How did he get the training? Well, clearly he was good in other things first, because I was like, who would want to take him on as a student? Like, who would want to take someone on like who would want to take someone on as a student to be a so-fair without like the kind of rigorous training you'd have in advance? Well, he had to have something before. And the something before was, the art school training, which he had. The art school training that gave him a mentor who works for the comic company. Like the art school training that like taught him like how to, letter for comics. The art school training that taught him the importance of letters and sort of like in calligraphic style. Calligraphic style. And which got him, as I said, the mentor, which got him friends with the art crew, came from Miracles and Menorahs, like all of those things. So you have someone who has two sets of training skills and wants to use them both.
Yeah.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, Hardy, or Hallmarkie in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
Well, I was going to ask, was it harder not having a direct holiday in this one and compared to some of the other ones? Or is it easier not having to connect everything back to a holiday?
Well, it's definitely a different process for sure. But this was a wedding book. Like, this was the first stage in a wedding book. So it's like, chop
There's
out
an event,
holiday,
I guess.
insert wedding,
Yeah.
like thematically, like this is stage 1 of 3 to get to the wedding. And so like, so that was kind of the larger format of the book as opposed to the holiday. Granted, it's fun to sort of juggle the two things at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Not literally simultaneously, but at the same time.
Yeah.
But like, you know, introducing the wedding, introducing all of the things that need to happen for this wedding took up a lot of page space. But
Right.
the fake dating sort of and the rest of the things that they were doing allowed me to sort of make that one of 3 tracks in the book. You know, her professional development, his professional development, and the wedding. So like all of the 3 things happened.
Yeah.
This was kind of natural as a result of that.
Mm-hmm. So what would be your pitch to the Hallmarkies that this is a book they're going to really enjoy?
We have a high-powered sports agent, an adorable calligrapher who does multiple things. We have bits of hockey. We have bits of fake dating. We have self-aware characters. If you liked The Wedding Contract and you want to learn more about the process of a Jewish wedding and what a sofer does, and maybe have a little romance involved, this is the book for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Well, so for the ending questions, I found online the Jewish icebreaker questions. So I figured instead of the Christmas questions like we sometimes ask, let's ask you the Jewish icebreaker questions. You ready?
Awesome. Yep.
Okay. First question. Do you identify as a shawarma or a falafel?
I'm kind of all over the place. Like I love them both.
Yes.
Somewhere happily in the middle, I guess.
Okay.
Like,
what kind of pita, hummus, or toppings do you most identify with, or do you like the most? Does anyone identify with the pita? What's your favorite?
So let's see. I like, I love pitas. They're very, very yummy. I especially love when they're gluten-free. Like, give me all of that because my happily unfortunate digestive system doesn't like gluten so much. But like, I love like tzatziki sauce. I love tahini. I love. I'm kind of sacrilegious too in that sense. Like, I love like the dessert hummus. I'm kind of a sucker for that.
Oh yeah.
Because I also have dairy issues. So like, I love pumpkin pie, but of course finding a gluten-free crust isn't possible. So like pumpkin pie hummus on like a gluten-free graham cracker is like perfect joy and happiness. And then the chocolate, like yum, right? So
yeah.
But I love all of them. So
what is your favorite Jewish holiday?
Hanukkah.
Hanukkah. Very
Like
good.
not even a question. It's so I mean, there's I love a lot of them. Like Passover is coming up and I'm excited to see family and like I'm excited to like have the seders and watch my 9-year-old nephew, do the 4 questions. But like I mean, I am the the Seth Rogen opening his Hanukkah sweater at I think it's Amy Poehler character with the light up Hanukkah sweater. Like that is literally me. Like I'm waiting excitedly till like, November 1st or whatever, and out comes like, and you put away like the Halloween and out comes my menorah. Like
Well, next question. What is your favorite Yiddish word?
I think I love a lot of them, but I think for this book, I think for this particular day, we're gonna have to go with Bashert.
Bashert, very good. Okay. This is, what is your favorite biblical character?
Oh, that's a question. Let me think. I think. Oh gosh. I'm trying to remember. Is it Deborah or no? Judith who like loved cheese and like in the Hanukkah story and like the Hanukkah story, like of the general. I think that was her.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean Esther and the Megillah, I mean the courage of her convictions. Like we just had had Purim and like terrified young woman like having to like go in front of the king, her husband, to like request the freedom of her people. Like, my God, like all of that on her shoulders. Like, I so admire her. Let me tell you.
Yeah. That one's a good one. Well, you have to help me with a few of these because I don't really understand them. But like it says, if you could only keep one mitzvah, what would it be?
So there are 613 mitzvahs.
Okay.
Good deeds, like, is basically what it is. And I'm kind of like, I think we all need a little bit of tikkun olam, which is making the world better, literally. Like, like seeing that joy every day is kind of like is important. And I think every time we see something like that, I think it's important. So that's the one.
Mhm. Okay. And again, have to help me with this one. It says, if you had to eat out of a kippah, what food would you choose?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, hopefully I know where the kippah is coming from and it hasn't been like sitting in someone's drawer after like years of like going to one bat mitzvah.
What's that? What's a kippah?
So it's like, so the head covering, it comes in very many sorts of different sizes and types. It sits on people. It's kind of like, how do I describe it? It kind of goes around like this. It has to cover a certain part of the head. And it's very sort of like, it comes in different fabrics and sizes and stuff, but generally speaking, it covers the head, and you're supposed to wear it during prayer. Men are supposed to wear it during prayer. Women can if they want to, they don't have to, but they've got like, lace and stuff.
So they don't normally eat out of it.
No, it's not a thing you would eat out of. No.
Okay.
So I would actually go, so like something that's like indestructible and like is not affected by anything. And I would absolutely go for like dry Cheerios.
Oh, I was gonna say maybe something with like a rind kind of protect it, like an apple or something, maybe.
Yeah, but like I would totally go for dry Cheerios because like people have been eating them like off the floor, like off all the things for years. So like, and because Cheerios don't pick up smells of things, so like, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, it says, what is your favorite what is your favorite Purim costume, or what is the best Purim costume you ever saw?
Oh my gosh. So I mean, like, I used to dress up as Queen Esther a lot. Like, there were tiaras, there was like dresses, it was a whole thing. Like, my gosh, like give me a reason as a kid to wear a tiara. But like, I'm trying to think. I know I've seen people dress up as the scroll. I've seen like people dress up as like the groggers, like the, noise makers, that you're supposed to drown out Haman's name to.
I didn't know there were costumes as part of Purim.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Purim is like huge. Like, like Purim is huge for costumes. Like, it's a tradition that started like ages ago. Like, but like, yeah, no, it's like, I will eventually write a Purim romance novel, because like the shenanigans that could happen on a holiday where like part of the law is that you're supposed to drink until you don't know the difference between right and wrong.
Yeah.
The shenanigans that could happen. Let me tell you the shenanigans.
Have you ever heard of the movie For Your Consideration?
Yes.
Oh, it's so funny. It's the same troupe who did like Best in Show and this whole thing, and it's about this fake, like for listeners, it's about they do this fake Oscar campaign, right, for this movie, and it's so funny because it starts out as Home for Purim is the movie. And by the end, out with all the finagling and everything, the focus grouping, it ends up being Home for Thanksgiving. And
which is hilarious, because like it's funny because like I don't picture Purim as like the very happy family holiday. Like, it's literally like everybody dresses up in costume. Like the raucous fun that could happen during Purim is like ridiculous.
Yeah, that's so funny.
It's nuts.
And
Yeah.
Jennifer Coolidge, she's so
Yeah.
hilarious in the movie. She says, she's like, just make it about Easter. Everyone likes bunnies.
Oh my God.
As if there's nothing religious about that at all.
God.
And Ricky Gervais is really funny as this big, like, he's the big like studio exec guy, and he's not a fan of this. Even I don't know. It's very funny. People should check it out. But that's my main that's where I think I first heard about Purim was from that movie.
Yeah, it's wild. Like it's the raucous like
Yeah.
holiday.
Very good. I think that those are the good ones in here.
Yeah.
But congrats on the new book. That's so exciting. We're always thrilled for your success. And we'll have a link if people want to check it out, an affiliate link in the description. People definitely should. And yeah, we'll be excited for this and excited for what it comes next.
Yes. I might have some news about that.
Yeah. All right. Very good.
This will be the third book in this series with a character that some people already know, which I made allusion to earlier in the interview.
Oh, very good. Very good. We'll be excited for it. If people want to follow you on socials, how do they do that?
Brain is working today. NY Stacey on Twitter or X, wherever you want to call it. S Agdern on Instagram and TikTok, and also Blue Sky and
everywhere. Yeah.
We are staying away from Facebook pages at the moment. So.
Okay.
Until further notice.
Very good. We'll have that all in the description. You also check it out. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes, and on Goodreads. So check that out. And make sure you're following the podcast at Hallmarkies Pod and Hallmarkies Podcast, all of our social media. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. We really appreciate that. And if you are watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. We also have our Patreon group, which is the biggest way you can support us. And we really, really, really appreciate that support. And we have our merch store. We get tons of fun. We have new merch. It's very exciting. Finally, I got things together. We have Way Home merch. We have lots of fun stuff. So please take a look at that. And I would sure be grateful. And thanks so much, Stacey. It's always a blast.
Thank you so much for having me, Rachel.
Yeah.
You're awesome. And I'm so glad to chat with you.
Yeah. We'll talk to you all later. Bye.